For over 50 years, Burlington's legacy has been great deals on coats for all weather conditions. So before you're caught unprepared for the winter weather, head to Burlington for name brands, quality items, and surprising fits for every family member. Stock up on coats, sweaters, and accessories before the cold hits, so you can finally stop avoiding the elements and start living comfortably. Warm up at your nearest Burlington location less than 1 mile away. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow.
Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
When you share your food, you share your heart. So what's on your table this holiday season? Save on your festive feast at Kroger with delicious deals on all the holiday classics. Or wow the crowd with something new, like a quinoa stuffed butternut squash. It's sure to add a pop of color to your spread. How about a sweet potato casserole with a crunchy oat streusel topping, made with care for the sweet tooth and the savory tooth? With Kroger, fill your table with love and watch as your guests' hearts get as full as their bellies. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Welcome to Lunathion, aka Crescent City, where Bryce Quinlan and her best friend Danika Fendyr are working women by day, resident party gals by night. An encounter with a Nightstalker forces Danika to visit Bryce at Giffin Antiquities, where she leaves her weapons and borrows clothes before attending a meeting with the heads of the city. In the early chapters of House and Earth and Blood, where the relationships are plentiful and messy, the scene is set and groundwork laid for the journey of Bryce and those she loves the most.
The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of the many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised. As we started recording this season, we realized just how freaking long these episodes were going to be. So we're changing up our format a little bit in a way we hope you'll enjoy. Instead of publishing 2+ hours of content at a time, we're going to divide episodes into 2 parts. The first part published on Tuesday and the second one on Thursday.
When we have a shorter episode, we'll give it to you all at once. We may even follow up with a mini episode on Thursdays in those cases. Because you all have been waiting so patiently for this season while we've taken a mini hiatus, we're giving you all of episode 1 and the first half of episode 2. Tune in Thursday for part 2 of episode 2.
We're back!
We're back!
Welcome to Season 5 of Book Talk for Book Talk, where we begin our literary analysis of Sara J Maas's Crescent City series. For Season 5, we will be covering A House of Earth and Blood.
If you're new to us, here's a little bit about the podcast. Each season, we cover one book and conduct an in-depth literary analysis. We pick 2 literary lenses through which we review the text, providing 2 different perspectives of interpretation. Mind you, these are just 2 of many possible interpretations.
When we do a literary analysis, we treat the text as gospel, meaning we take everything at face value and find ways to link the pieces together. We're basically like your high school or college literature class, but in a podcast form.
We will do our best to analyze this book in its own silo, meaning you don't need to read any of SJM's other works to listen to the podcast. At the end of the episode, though, we'll get into breadcrumbs, where we'll cover theories and clues for not only the rest of the series, but sometimes the SJM universe.
We are human, though, so we may slip up, and we apologize now. But we will try our absolute hardest. I will say, I feel like we've improved significantly since Season 1, so take
There's that.
Yeah, at least we've done better.
Speaking of Season 1, 2, 3, and 4, we did an analysis of Sara J Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses series, beginning with Thorns and Roses and all the way through Frost and Starlight. You don't have to have listened to those seasons to listen to this current season, but we definitely recommend them anyway if you're an ACOTAR fan.
Or if you're not an ACOTAR fan and you just want to give us the downloads,
we would appreciate that too.
we encourage. Now let's discuss the literary lenses that we will be using. I'm Jac, and I'm back using the feminist lens. I'll be analyzing the text through hetero-gender norms and stereotypes, which in no way reflect my personal views on gender, and will only be a tool I use to discuss aspects of this novel.
If you could see your own eyes, you go,
I just
really big.
I just want people to know.
No way.
Like, some of the things I say, I'm just like, this hurts me. This hurts you.
It's just a part of the analysis.
It's just the analysis, guys.
Well, I'm Amy, and I continue to provide my analysis through a Marxist lens, where I'll view different power dynamics among the characters and the world itself. Although I might be sprinkling some queer theory in here and there for a little bit of spice.
I know. How nerdy are we that we're like, we're going to get real spicy by adding another lens. This is getting insane, guys. So Amy and I are both going to be sharing that lens, which means 3 different lenses. Oh boy.
Woo woo.
Remember, this is our interpretation of the text, and we in no way, shape, or form think that this is the only way to analyze. So please read along with us and email us your interpretations.
So here's a little bit about ourselves, who we are, and why we know what we know. Sounds real cocky.
I know, right?
That's all right. I want to start by saying everyone can do a literary analysis. We do not gatekeep. College, no college, every single one of you can do an analysis, and we encourage you to do so. Let us use our insane amount of college debt to help you get started.
I'm Jac. I'm an avid reader, particularly with smut, and I'm a writer with a book on the way. I loved literary analysis ever since high school, and that was the only class I liked. I did my bachelor's in creative writing at Arizona State University with Amy, and my master's in comparative literature at Queen Mary University of London.
I'm Amy, a reader, writer, and passionate literary analyst. I'm also an adrenaline seeker, by which I mean I devour smutty audiobooks on my daily commute.
I was about to say, in what world? In what world? I did not read your bio.
And I'm always looking for new recommendations. And also by devour, I mean 2-speed. I met Jac when we attended the same creative writing bachelor's program, after which I received my master's in education. And I'm happy to report for our regular listeners who are not in the loop, I did read Throne of Glass during our hiatus.
Woo!
I am officially a completionist.
Yay! Quickly. Did you like it?
I loved it.
Cool, that's all we're going to give.
Yeah, that's it.
Because this is a long episode.
It is.
All right, themes that you're going to see in this book. First one, don't judge a book by its cover. The second one, destiny versus predestination.
The question we're going to ask ourselves this episode is, does the world building overtake the character and plot development at the start of House of Earth and Blood?
Themes we're going to see in this section are establishing dominance and roles.
So let's start off chapter 1 by saying, we all know there's a lot of world building going on in the first 100, 200, maybe 300 pages of this book. That being said, a lot of our analysis is going to be along the same lines, so just be patient.
Let me start off by saying that this book is huge and has fallen on my face twice.
Oh, were you reading in bed?
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
So, the very first line of this book, we start with a wolf. I love to analyze the opening of any book, especially the first sentence, because we all are taught in creative writing that that's where you grab your reader. We can tell by the second sentence of this book that what we may have thought would be terrifying, aka a wolf, it is in fact mundane. It's just your average Thursday. It also gives us a glimpse into the world that is Crescent City from the get-go. Wolves at your front door on a Thursday are normal. Also, I have to point out that SJM loves to have wolves in each of her series. Why is that significant? A wolf is killed in each of her series as well. I can't elaborate since that's a spoiler, but had to put it out there.
I did not put that together.
Oh yeah,
that they're all 3. The first time I read Crescent City, I had to reread that first line a dozen times.
Oh really?
I was so like, what? I didn't understand what was happening because I was thinking ACOTAR.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It was done dirty.
So We do a lot of analysis of names in this first episode, and we probably will continue to do so for a few episodes. Let's start out with Bryce. She is our protagonist. I genuinely didn't think Bryce's name would have any sort of relevance, but I was wrong.
Yeah.
It is Scottish for freckled or blemished. So Bryce does have freckles, but I really want to focus on this idea of being blemished. It perfectly captures Bryce's own mentality about herself, whether or not she's willing to admit that. The question for me is, which is the blemish that Bryce despises? Her human half or her fae half? And that's something we're going to explore a lot this season.
I don't know if we'll ever have an answer.
I actually do think we come around to it.
That she hates both.
She's just a self-loathing individual.
Right? So I also looked up the meaning of names because we've learned so many times now that SJM is just a master of names. And what did I write? Never leave a name behind. That's my note right out there. I 100% think it's important because people can either really like their freckles or hate it. Like I love freckles, but I know people who have freckles kind of spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to cover it up. And we're going to see Bryce grow to accept herself one way or another. But I think it is meaningful. But also, like, Bryce is just such a cool girl name.
It really is.
Right?
Yeah.
It's wrong. Like, if I had kids and named her Bryce.
No. I watched a TikTok recently where someone's daughter on the screen was Hermione.
Really?
Yes. You can name your daughter Bryce.
All right, that's fair. I am not pregnant this season. Ooh, but maybe next.
So now let's turn to Danika. Danika is Bryce's best friend. What does Danika mean? Also another name I didn't think would have relevance because I had someone work for me whose name was Danika, and it's a pretty name. Didn't think it would mean anything. It means morning star. On one hand, cute. Spoiler, spoiler, spoiler. Bryce is starborn. And Danika's name means morning star. Like, it's just cute. They're meant to be. They're both stars.
Little stars.
On the other hand, this book is also rife with religious imagery. Morning star in Christianity is associated with Lucifer from the Bible. And that is super curious. No wonder why her pack is named the Pack of Devils.
Oh my God.
Lucifer is Satan is the devil. Yeah, I got goosebumps when
That's
like,
really good. I totally forgot about Pack of Devils.
Yeah, right? Morning Star is also a type of weapon, a club with spikes on the end, which honestly sounds like Danika and her personality.
Didn't know that was a weapon.
It is. It's a medieval weapon.
Okay.
So why do you think SJM picked the name Danika?
Oh my God. So buckle up. Thank you. I was waiting for you. So when I was doing research on this, I was thrown when I initially saw Morningstar because I was like, oh my God, potentially Lucifer connection. And when I started thinking about it, it made sense. Lucifer was supposed to be God's special little boy, right? And it's like, it was God's favorite, their brightest star, which is why Lucifer is known as Morningstar. And there's actually more links between the planet Venus. Lucifer in Latin is the name for the morning appearance of Venus. Hence, morning star. So to me, this is like a 1-2 punch. Danika is bringing the light for Bryce because literally she helps her with the drop. A.k.a. light it up, Danika. Light it up, light it up, light it up. And we will cry.
Yep.
Also, Danika was Bryce's favorite and her best friend. And as Lucifer fell with God, so will Danika with Bryce.
It's true.
And then the fact that like Morningstar means Venus and like Venus is beauty and love and God, like goddess of love and everything, which is going to be a cool contrast with what I'm going to say about Danika later.
Oh, I can't wait. I know nothing, so I'm really excited to hear about it.
Yeah, I know. We're doing a different thing this season, guys, where we know less.
We don't prep.
We prep differently.
That's fair. So while we're on the topic of Danika, she has amethyst, sapphire, and rose streaks in her hair. I would never call my hair amethyst if I dyed it purple.
Sapphire is blue.
Blue, rose is pink.
Isn't that the bi flag?
Yes, that is in my notes.
Shit. I'm so sorry.
Totally okay. That is point 2.
This is what happens when we don't read each other's notes.
Point 1. Now, this description of amethyst, sapphire, and rose comes from Bryce's perspective. Why not call them purple, blue, and pink? It's way easier.
Yeah.
It's because Danika, or at least it's because, from my point of view, Danika is the most important person to Bryce. The colors reflect Danika's value to Bryce. Look at how in the next paragraph, quote, Bryce took the liberty of prying Danika's plait free after it got tangled up in Danika's harness. They're practically an old married couple here. And Bryce loves Danika. So that's why the colors are so elaborate and gem-like. And yes, point number 2, those are bisexual colors. You cannot convince me otherwise, and I will bring that back up in another moment.
It's, it's not just like your interpretation. Bryce flat out says, I love, I don't have a need for love. Danika's my everything.
I forgot how much she said that.
Yeah, I can't wait. Stick around, guys, because I do talk a lot about, this is an extremely toxic, codependent relationship.
My last point before you continue, Jack. Amethyst is also used for clearing your third eye chakra, which is important for intuition. Just FYI. I feel like that's very apropos for Danika, who's really keen on the scent.
Third eye, so between forehead.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. You like that. I want to discuss the initial introduction of these women and what that sets up for us. Bryce is put together. She's dressed up. She has heels on. She's showered. And Bryce is curvy and loves to own it and shows it off, and she's confident. Additionally, she's very passive when it comes to Danika, going along with what Danika suggests, like getting the tattoo and letting Danika always take the lead. Bryce is the ultimate feminine, both in her looks and in her actions. Reminder, guys, this is not my views. These are just, look at the text. In a moment, I'll get into why Danika represents the masculine, but Bryce is the perfect little picture of the stereotypical feminine, pretty and passive. When you look at SJM's other female leads, sorry to already bring them up, even though we said we weren't going to, but this is not a spoiler, but Bryce is, I would say, initially the most feminine.
Yeah, out of all of them, I agree.
Immediately off the bat. So, no spoilers there. But over the course of the book, I'm going to point out how Bryce not only embraces the masculine, but she feminizes the masculine, turning her into the ultimate weapon. Does that make sense? No. Will it later? Maybe not.
I can kind of see it.
Yeah, because right now, when we think the masculine, which I'll get into, why Danika represents the masculine, and I don't think that that's, too far off of a notion. You can kind of guess where I'm going with that. Bryce is going to adapt these, but she never loses her quote-unquote femininity. So
I agree.
Turn it into the feminine.
Okay.
She's goals, basically. Before we get into Danika, I want to point out writing perspectives. This is in third person, meaning the narrator exists outside of characters or events of the story. That being said, there's 3 different types of third person. You have omniscient. They are the all-knowing and they know all the inner thoughts of all characters. Then there's third person objective. This narrator reports on events without knowing the thoughts or motivations of characters until it's revealed. It's very matter of fact. Then you have limited third person. And that's what we have here. It's the narrator is still outside the events, but does not know the emotions and motivations of everyone else, but it still has one character that they focus on. Think Harry Potter. Now, why is that important? Because even though this is third person, it's third person Bryce. And the description of Danika is harsh as hell.
It is.
Right?
There are some really harsh descriptions of Danika in this, episode.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you 2 quotes. The first one. A fist that Bryce knew ended in metallic purple painted nails in dire need of a manicure. Rude.
They have the kind of friendship where they're not afraid to call each other out on their shit.
But I don't think that's a shit you call each other out on.
She's a different kind of friend.
That's not
the kind of friend you want.
No. The other quote. Danika didn't just look like she was rooting through the garbage. She smelled like it too. All right, that one I would like to be told.
Yes, you don't like outside smells.
I really hate outside smell. So Danika is dirty, unpolished, wearing her fighting clothes, everything Bryce isn't. And there's something underlining very judgy here from Bryce. Also, we find out right away that Danika is a leader. So powerful that she's going to skip her mom to become prime parent. We're going to get way more into that. But most importantly, she's a leader of a mostly male pack. And Danika is the masculine. is Bryce having issues with Danika herself or with the masculine that Danika represents? Stay tuned and find out.
Yeah, I have thoughts. I can't wait to discuss it later.
You can say thoughts now if you
Oh,
want.
can I? Okay.
Yeah, I'm done.
Bryce complains later on, I think in chapter 3, that she doesn't want to be with an alpha hole male, etc. And alpha hole comes up a lot. It's really, really cute. I'm really proud of SJM for coming up with it, if she did.
But her best friend is an alpha hole.
Her best friend is an alpha hole, and she flat out says it at like the beginning of chapter 3, which I will discuss. So Bryce is just going to call things as they are. She's does not hold back. And that is true for Danika. And I think she sees in Danika qualities she would never accept in a male.
Yeah, she would never accept it as a male, but she'll accept it with her best friend.
Yep.
Who's her love interest? I don't know.
I have thoughts on this a little bit later.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is relevant, but when I was rereading chapter 1, I wanted to note the first 2 individuals we were introduced to other than Bryce, which are Danika and Lahaba. Now, Danika's out in the heat. Like, it's a really hot summer day. She's complaining that she's out there. Lahaba is also a literal flame. Also, side note, Bryce's mother's name is Ember, like the ember of a fire. There's a lot of heat and fire imagery going on right now.
Because she hot.
She is hot. Danika's name, as I mentioned prior, means morning star, which is a type of weapon. Lahaba in Hebrew means flame tip of a weapon, a point or head of a spear. And both of them die? I say that because I assume we've all read this book already. Are Danika and Lahaba perhaps more connected than I initially realized when I read this book? And I don't know the answer to that, but I pose the question.
Okay. What if? So Lahaba, you're saying it means like tip of a...
Yeah, a flame tip of a
flame
weapon.
tip, right? So you could say she's a tool. She's a tool for Bryce to succeed later.
Yeah.
And she's a plot device tool.
Yep, she sure is. And you know who else is?
No. Oh, yeah, I was like...
Danika.
No, who is it? Yeah. But I mean, it kind of makes... I mean, it would be really harsh if that was the case, but... Which it might be, where... She kind of has one role, and that's to sacrifice herself at the end.
Yeah. Yeah, which is really sad, because I sob every time I read that part.
Will you cry for the season?
I don't know. I don't know how to cry on camera.
God willing.
Or on microphone.
Well, the best part is, we're not doing the prep like we were.
It's true.
So I can't cry before the episode. So I'll cry live.
Nice.
Yay.
Bryce's employer, Jessica Roga, gets mentioned early on. We learn Jessica is a 400-year-old enchantress who defected from the witches and turns people who irritate her into animals, which is a skill I would love to have. Jessica Roga sounds a lot like Baba Roga, not to be confused with Baba Yaga. Baba Roga stems from Southern Slavic folklore. She's a witch and a potential sister to Baba Yaga. I couldn't get clarity on that. And is often mixed up with Baba Yaga. Baba Roga employs animals to do her work, like Jessica Roga turns people into animals, and she visits children while they sleep to make sure they have pleasant dreams, but if they wake up, she scares them back to sleep. I just wanted to bring this all up because it just paints a picture of who Jessica Roga is. Like, she's always threatening Bryce, always threatening to turn her into a pig, but is actually, like, really caring on the side.
Yeah. Yeah, she is. And, like, in a way, I really feel like Bryce looks up to Jessica. Mm-hmm. I mean, the same way that I look up to Jessica. And I think that she tries to emanate her.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, like this put together person that it's like, oh, tell Danika to get her stuff out of my stuff. It's not what she said, but you get the gist. I may not be Jessica, but if you were to have a go-to animal to turn your victims into, what animal would you go for?
A ferret.
Because they have no spine and you can bend them more? That was really cruel of me. I love ferrets.
I think they're really, really cute. And I think that would be cuter than how irritating people are. But also, if I needed to chop them in half, that would be easy.
Oh my God.
That was my thought process.
It was oddly good and specific. I'm scared.
What would you turn people into?
I don't know, Amy. I don't know if there's an answer that can come after that. I'm scared to become a ferret. Wait, is it because that Snape did that to... Or no, not Snape. The fake Mad-Eye Moody?
Oh, did that to Draco Malfoy? Mm-hmm. That was not what I was thinking of when I...
But now I see it.
Now I see it.
Yeah.
I see the influence.
I'm going to go with ferret. I can't go with ferret too. I'm going to go with bunnies.
Oh, they poop a lot.
Oh, I lost already. My victims won.
Leave poop in your bed.
I know. Damn it. I kill them and keep their feet. This is not who we are. We have lost so many. Any new listeners has bounced. PETA.
Oh, man. We could go into Norse mythology. There is a lot of that here. There's a lot of different types of mythology in this novel. However, we have to draw the line somewhere, and I'm drawing the line now.
But you can email us the things that we did not bring up.
Yes, absolutely. Please do. Instead, I'm going to talk about what we learn about the characters other than just their names. We start to see into Bryce's psyche pretty quickly. Early on in the chapter, Bryce has, quote, sharp half-fae hearing, which one would consider a good thing. But then on the flip side, Bryce doesn't have the benefit of, quote, being a full-blooded Vanir with swift recovery time compared to humans, or a half-human like Bryce. So all of a sudden, being half-fae is not good enough. We're going to see this a lot, not only the fact that Bryce is going to be told or reminded of her deficiencies, but she's also going to struggle to embrace both her human and fae sides with equal appreciation.
It makes sense why she would be attracted to Danika as a friend or more, because Bryce is so insecure about being half Vanir. Of course she would be friends with someone who was super duper Vanir.
Oh yeah, like overtly Vanir, like through the roof Vanir.
Yeah.
Vanir. Not veneers like teeth.
Oh.
Vanir.
Just found my word for the season I'm going to struggle with. Finally have a character name that I can pronounce.
Yay!
Vanir.
Vanir. At least that's how it's pronounced on the audiobook.
Vanir.
Yep.
Okay.
You got it.
Thank you.
I have to call out the fact that Danika leaves her sword, quote, famed both in this city and far beyond it, whatever that means, in a supply closet next to a broom and a mop. On one hand, Danika views this mighty object, like the tool that it is, that to her probably seems pretty normal, like a broom or a mop. Except it's a family heirloom, like we don't treat family heirlooms like a broom or a mop. On the other hand, Danika has discarded the object that symbolizes her power, not bothering to take it with her to the city head meeting later on that she goes to. On the other hand, she's discarded the object that symbolizes her power, not bothering to take it with her to the city head meeting later on. It's a curious move on Danika's part, or at least curious to me. Does she think trouble is coming her way? And I ask myself that question a lot in this episode. The opposite thought I had was, does Danika go without the sword to appear submissive, knowing she could be trot for her treasonous behavior at any moment, which we haven't even started to dive into yet? And my last thought, or is it just really convenient for SJM? Because she needs Bryce to have that sword later on.
Right? Something that you said that I'm just like, next episode or whenever, I can't remember when we cover things, but the entire time I was reading this, I'm like, does Danika know she's going to die? Because it reads like yes. But the way that she died, maybe she didn't know she was going to die that night.
Yeah.
Because I don't think she would want all of her pack to die with her.
Right.
But this definitely, I mean, she had Bryce get the tattoo.
Right.
Like, she was setting things up so that Bryce would be set.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you that more than likely she didn't expect to die the night that she dies, right? She was caught off guard because she would have put up more of a fight if she knew. However, she is acting like every moment is the last moment that she has with Bryce.
Yeah. This is all the same night.
Yeah.
I did not register that until we were doing the analysis, where I was like, wait, all of this is the first night. It's just one night. One day.
the first, 5-6 chapters are all the same evening.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So trippy. But it's done really well.
It's done very well.
So as to why Danika leaves the sword there, immediately I was like, this is such a boy move. You're just proving the point that Danika's the masculine here. But I can't tell if this is supposed to make her cool or not cool. And I think that's kind of the point. Again, we're getting this from Bryce's limited third person perspective. So that's why I think we're getting some of that cool girl vibes. Danika just left this super awesome sword in the supply closet. I don't know why I regret doing that. When I first read it, I thought wow, Danika's so humble. She's not ruled by power. She doesn't care that she's going to be the prime apparent. And I think that was swayed by Bryce. When in actuality, Danika's so not respectful. And I don't mean of her mother or the institution necessarily, but respectful of the power that she has.
Mm-hmm.
Or she is, and she's just setting Bryce up to because we know for a fact she's done this before.
Yeah, she has done it before.
I take it back. You're not respectful, Danika. Boom.
Well, and I think that's a symptom of what it means to be Vanir.
Whoa.
They treat humans like trash and half humans like trash because they take for granted what they have.
Yeah.
But they know that humans don't have it, and therefore it's justified. It's a fucked up mindset.
It's like veneer privilege.
Yeah.
Without even realizing they have this veneer privilege. And the way that they act is just so they wouldn't think of anything else. Right.
We're not going to get into this, but it's a lot like race privilege.
Well, that's what I was saying. Veneer privilege, I was thinking white privilege.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's identical.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think it absolutely spot on is, ooh, spicy analysis. We're hardcore.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. My entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
For over 50 years, Burlington's legacy has been great deals on coats for all weather conditions. So before you're caught unprepared for the winter weather, head to Burlington for name brands, quality items, and surprising fits for every family member. Stock up on coats, sweaters, and accessories before the cold hits, so you can finally stop avoiding the elements and start living comfortably. Warm up at your nearest Burlington location less than 1 mile away. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary. and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
I want to acknowledge for a moment that the first time we see the sword is right now at the start of the book, when Danika leaves to use the restroom in the library below the antique shop. The next time we see the sword, the book is going to be like 80% done. But a cool mirror shows up. Bryce and Lahaba will have just bought precious seconds of time by locking Micah in the same bathroom that Danika goes to shower in. And that's when Bryce retrieves the sword. It just feels like a good parallel.
Yeah, it's very bookending, right? Like we're starting it off with this, and that's how this book is going to end too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to point out also that the number 7 gets thrown around a lot in this novel in a myriad of different ways throughout the series. The first time it is mentioned is in this first chapter when when talking about the 7 city heads. In numerology, the number 7 is mysterious and spiritual. In biblical terms, it symbolizes completion and perfection because, God created the earth in 7 days. I'm just going to point that out. I'm going to talk later about more numbers, just like about more names. So get ready.
So if someone is like, hey, do you think Jac's super hot? And they're like, nah, I think she's a 7. I'll be like, well, fuck you, because that is a super cool number.
Yeah, that means I am perfection.
So what you're really saying is that I'm perfect.
Yeah, yep. It's the exact right answer.
I love that. I really wish I had that growing up when I got C's on tests.
Oh.
The way you said that is the way that someone who never got a C on a test says it. Am I right?
You're right.
Yep.
You're right. I was thinking, so I did the IB program, and the top grade you can get is a 7. I was thinking about that at that moment.
That makes sense.
One of the constant themes that I've been seeing while reading the Crescent City series, but also House of Earth and Blood, is how one can lie with the truth, which we're all familiar with, especially when that individual is Danika. We see it a lot in this episode and also here in this first chapter. Danika is anxious about Philip Briggs's release. Instead of being mad about his release because he's dangerous, in actuality, she's worried about him ratting her out for letting him off easy in the past. At least that's my theory. Our listeners ask us how we feel about Danika. And as I said in yesterday's live, how is she any different from Rhys with Feyre, or Xaden with Violet, or Violet with her friends in Fourth Wing? All these characters are cut from the same cloth.
When you compared Xaden and Violet to Danika and Bryce, it was so good it hurt my feelings.
Good. I wanted you to hurt.
Yeah. the season's going to be painful.
Yeah, it is.
But it was such a good comparison where you're like, they're not bad.
Yeah.
But you can't say they're good.
Yeah.
But I am willing to justify actions.
Yeah. I would say Danika's the true morally gray character of this book.
I'm going to say, yeah. I'm going to agree with that.
And it's not the kind of gray morals that we would expect maybe from a male character. But I think that she really embodies what it means to be gray.
Yeah, I think so. I agree with that. Especially since, well, I don't know, because all of her actions at the end of the day are so noble.
But do the ends justify the means?
No, I don't know. Well, stick around this season.
We'll see if we answer our own question.
Right. I want to talk about Bryce and Danika's relationship. These are clearly two best friends who love each other. But I also made it clear in chapter 1 that there's this toxic element here. That doesn't mean there isn't some good, but it's also setting us up later to see just how unhealthy this relationship is. Bryce looks at her own dirty, smelly clothes that she left at work and thinks about why she didn't bring them home. Quote, mostly thanks to Danika sending her a video of a heap of mirth root on the kitchen counter, music already blasting from the beat-up boombox by the window, along with the command to hurry home quick. Bryce obeyed. They smoked enough that there was a good chance Bryce had still been high yesterday morning when she stumbled into work. Now, I know that Danika did this so that Bryce would be high enough to get that super special tattoo. I see what you're doing, Danika. But it's also messed up that Bryce didn't question or push back.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's clearly something that they do enough that she's like, all right. Like, if I had sent you a text, be like, hey, get over here. We're going to smoke a shit ton of weed.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be like, this isn't, like, who are you? This is not Jack.
Right. However,
If it was sushi.
yes. But my thought is this is a really good description that paints a picture of who these people are, who Danika and Bryce are, because I know people who are like that.
Yeah.
Who are like, come smoke a bunch of weed with me. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, no question.
No, I mean,
And it tells us who they are.
it absolutely tells us who they are, and it shows that Danika is the alpha and Bryce follows. And that kind of brings me back to the fact that, like, the masculine and the feminine energy, the aggressive, the pushy one, and the assertive, and then the meek one, the one who's going to follow along. And that's also elements of codependency, right? Like the one who's going to set the pace and the other one that's going to go along with it. We'll get more into that, but I think that's just such a good example of, like, that is their lifestyle. But Danika is the one who's saying, get in something, we're going to the mall. What is that line again?
Get in, bitch.
Get in, idiot. No, get in. Or maybe it's just get in, we're going to the mall. I feel like it's something. So many people are mad at us right now. Get in, loser, we're going to the mall.
There you go. You got it.
There's not enough people to applaud me in this room.
So I want to go back to that quote because I see what you're saying. And this is why I think SJM is really, really masterful, because she's conveying these dynamics in their relationship. But she's telling us in the same breath, they're party girls.
Yeah.
And they have this persona and they live up to it. And that's going to come back and bite Bryce in the ass a lot.
Mm-hmm. They remind me of, what's that movie, The Sweetest Thing?
I don't know.
With Cameron Diaz.
I haven't seen it.
Really? God, you haven't?
I know it's from the 90s.
I know, that's just, I know. We'll come back to Amy lived in China.
Or early 2000s?
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Amy grew up in China.
I did.
There's a lot of lost years.
Oh, by the way, anyone else notice how Pangea is one letter more than Pangea?
No, I didn't like it. And I still don't like it. And because I don't know why.
Do you know what Pangea is?
I do.
You've got this look on your face like you had a revelation.
Yeah.
And? Is it multiverse related?
Uh-huh.
Okay, save it for the breadcrumbs.
Oh, I'm not going to remember. Remind me.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned before, numbers come up a lot in this book, and normally I would forget them, but because 7 is so rife throughout this novel and this series, I had to pay attention to more numbers. For example, the 33rd Legion. This is the group of angels who serve Micah, in which Hunt Athalar is one of the angels. What's the significance of 33? Well, some people believe in angel numbers, and 33 in angel numbers means anything is possible.
Oh.
Feels a lot like Through Love, all is possible.
Oh my God.
Also feels like foreshadowing for this entire novel.
Oh my God.
Especially when you think about Hunt and the deal he's going to have with Micah later on.
Yeah.
Like, anything is possible, Hunt. You can do it.
Yeah. 33.
Yeah, there's going to be more of that
This
later
book
on.
is out here making us act like Taylor Swift fans. I mean, we are Taylor Swift fans. But, like, there's a 13, and there's, like, today I thought she was going to announce Reputation. I mean, maybe she has. I haven't looked, but I doubt it. Counting the numbers.
Let's go back to Micah. His name is Hebrew for who is like God. Really, SJM? He's the archangel? He's like God? Okay. But let's bring it back to Danika for a moment. Danika, Morningstar, Lucifer. If Micah is like God, then Danika is the fallen, aka Lucifer, which we know to be true in Micah's eyes. Danika is constantly defying him and the Asteri and goes poking around into their shit instead of respecting them like all other Vanir. And Danika pays the ultimate price for it, which we all know is death.
And it's like opposite day where Micah, who's like God, is actually the bad guy, and Danika, who is Morningstar Lucifer, is actually the good guy, and it's just like a nice big old flipperoo. And what does that mean? That's like, that feels heavy. That feels like a lot. That feels like SJM working through her own religious crises. But
like, just in this first chapter,
we're still in chapter 1.
So much content.
Yeah.
And SJM's big brain is working overtime. There are just so many clues. Like, it's so much more layered than any other book she's written.
I mean, it's a whole lot of world building, but it's a whole lot of world building with more and more, like, character development, dynamic development, world building, numbers.
It's amazing.
It's great.
Last little piece of fun information before we go into chapter 2. Humans live in asphodel meadows. Now, asphodel is a flower, and it's considered an immortal flower said to grow in the Elysian fields, Greek mythology, and a favorite food of the dead. I just had to point that out because apparently humans are just cannon fodder for everybody else.
Damn right. What?
You're not supposed to say that.
No, I forgot for a second that I'm not veneer. What kind of veneer would you be?
That's an excellent question. I feel like I would be a fawn because I'd want to be really strong, but I'd have to work really hard.
No way you'd be a fawn.
You don't think so?
No, they're not
I'm too evil.
No, they're not murdery enough. That's like, what are you going to do? Like, back kick someone? Like,
and maybe I would be an angel. That's conceited too?
No, I can see you as Jessica's apprentice.
A witch?
Yeah.
Okay.
I see you as a witch.
There we go.
I feel like that's
appropriate.
Yeah.
How about you?
I think we both be angels now. I don't know what I am. Probably a wolf, but that's only because I'm listening to an alpha omega romance right now. And that's what's on my mind.
I understand. So I'm sorry to say, even though we've made it to chapter 2, we are not done with name analysis. I can't help it. SJM is so notorious for leaving clues in the names she chooses. So I'll start with Connor Holstrom. Connor means love of wolves or master of hounds.
Oh my God.
It's a great character name for a character that's about to die. It's just like so much wasted effort. Ethan should have been Connor. And Connor should have been Ethan.
Did we even look up what Ethan means?
No, I have not.
It's probably like second best little bitch boy.
Now, while there's a lot of world building in this chapter, just like there was in chapter 1, there's also a lot of setup and breadcrumbs for the plot of the novel. Check out the breadcrumbs. It is long, and I don't apologize because SJM was so good. At how much she put in there.
We did discuss on whether to keep them, and you made a good point of like, these are breadcrumbs. It might seem obvious to us.
Right.
But they're breadcrumbs.
But the first time you read the novel, it flies over your head. You have no idea.
Yeah, I was still stuck on the fact that there was a werewolf. Like, what the hell's happening?
We also see flashes of Bryce's inner war all throughout this chapter. Quote, Bryce, as half fae, could scent people in greater detail than the average human, but her abilities had nothing on her friends. We're starting to see not only Bryce struggling with appreciating and hating her fae side, she can't decide if she appreciates herself more or hates herself more, but we're also starting to see that side of her that compares herself to Danika and views herself, Bryce, as lacking. There are just going to be a lot of unspoken comparisons that are indicative of Bryce's own securities, and both Jac and I are going to talk about that. Although I think you have a different twist on it than I do.
Yeah.
I say this for 2 reasons. 1, Bryce is a confident badass whom I love and adore, but we all have insecurities. It's what makes Bryce human and relatable. And 2, SJM could have written the same scene that I just quoted above without the comparison, or focused only on Danika's abilities if she didn't want to convey some sort of envy that Bryce was feeling towards Danika.
Mm-hmm.
One of the good things about Bryce's human side, and Bryce is really good at rationalizing her appreciation or preference for her humanity, is that Danika, quote, would always have the burdens and expectations to shoulder that Bryce would never have to endure. When Danika fucked up, it was blasted on news reports and across the interweb. And I couldn't save that for the breadcrumbs, and I'm just going to say poor Bryce. You might believe that now, but it's all about to change.
Oh, that hurts. Yeah, it is going to change.
Yeah. And she really struggles with that in book 2.
Yeah, she does. I mean, yeah, it changes for so many reasons, but that was good. That was great.
Thanks.
You did a great job.
Thanks.
I'm going to continue the conversation of Bryce and Danika's friendship and the balance between the masculine and the feminine. Danika emerges in her wolf form for literally no reason other than like SJM's like, behold, a werewolf. And she can talk in her wolf form.
Yeah, I thought that was strange.
You know, like her mouth isn't made for that. But okay, I am on board though. I have seen Homeward Bound and Balto. A fact that I forgot and freaked me out when I reread it. I was like, oh my God, what happened? Anyway, I believe that Danika's wolf form is the ultimate masculine form. She's powerful. She's a leader. She's in charge as a wolf. Also, keep in mind that Danika is an alpha. She might be friends with Bryce, but Bryce is part of her pack, as I was saying earlier. It's why Danika is able to get Bryce to go out and party when she wants to, and why when Danika insists that Bryce keeps wearing the necklace that Jessica gives her, Bryce is like, okay, like, sure, I won't question any of this. I'm going to go along with it. I want to look at this moment. Quote, they strode onto the quiet street, a block off the Istros, the midday sun baking the cobblestones. Danika a solid wall of fur and muscle between Bryce and the curb. This is literally one of my favorite things that a guy does when I'm on a date with them, is that they go between me and the curb. And it's like a protection thing. Like, trust me, yay feminism. But also when I'm on the sidewalk with a guy, I'm just like a pretty little princess that needs protection from all the cars. And that's what's happening right now. What's interesting about this moment, other than the obvious masculine protector versus feminine protected, is the relationship dynamic. Allow me to sprinkle in some of that queer theory that we've been wanting to discuss, and that is very much a move that happens in romantic relationships. No chance in hell have I ever thrown myself between you and the curb, Amy.
No, probably not.
Neither. I've never even thought about the street with you. I'm sure you've never thought of the street with me. Am I saying that Bryce and Danika want to have sex together? No, but also not no. This is an interesting choice to include from SJM. It's such a small action, but can mean so much. Even the next couple pages, when Danika starts to become stressed, quote, Bryce lifted a hand and ran it down Danika's muscled ribs, a comforting, sweeping stroke. The feminine, the comforter, but also very intimate. But granted, Danika is a wolf right now, and it would be near impossible to treat a wolf, like to not treat a wolf like a puppy. Like if you were a werewolf, I would try to play fetch with you all the time.
Right. You'd probably also scratch me behind my ears.
I'd be like, where's your belly?
And,
Where's your belly? Yeah, 100%. But again, it's just that little bit of that little stroke there. And I'm going to give you one final quote. Quote, Danika is unable to stop that alpha wolf's instinct to protect at all costs. Again, there's like a lot of relationshipy things happening here. Thoughts?
There really is. I'm really bummed that my notes about their relationship are further down because it feels really relevant to bring up right now. But later on in the episode, I'm going to argue that SJM perpetuates her formula of the first love dying. And it's not Connor Holstrom, people. It's Danika Fendyr.
Do you think it's queerbaity?
A little bit. But not really. I think that
because they never come off as like we are together. Like they make it very clear they both have guys that they're interested in. Right.
And Hunt flat out asks Bryce at some point in this book, like, were you ever with Danika in that way? And she says, no, it was just different between the two of us. And I do think that friendships can be on a soul level.
Yeah.
And I think that's what these two have.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It is funny because it's like, we're best friends, but like you and I are also freakishly mentally aligned sometimes, where even when we both order different Starbucks orders, on a day, we get the same thing.
Yeah.
That we normally would not get.
Yep.
It is very entertaining. And so like I do understand when you have like someone that you're very close to, that you have that brain frequency, but that's where I go back to Danika and Bryce. There is something toxic there because Bryce doesn't know everything about Danika.
Right. Where Danika knows everything about Bryce.
And Danika's manipulating Bryce.
Yeah. It is a very Bryce is at a disadvantage in this relationship. And she trusts Danika implicitly, and that becomes a problem.
It's the same way when we talk about relationships, romantic relationships, where you have one person who is the one who's in power, the powerful one, the one who's, whether that's through job or age or money, and then the one who's not in power. And it's really hard to have those relationships be equal.
Yeah.
And not have the power dynamic influence it. And you can see that in this friendship.
Yep, I agree. So in chapter 1, we get a sense that Bryce doesn't like Sabine, and we did not talk about it. I wanted to talk about it now because we see it again in chapter 2. What we learn is that, quote, Bryce had loved Danika from the moment her new roommate at CCU had offered her hand in greeting, despite the fact that Sabine had just sneered at her only child's improper half-breed roommate. What this is telling me is that Bryce or Danika used the words improper half-breed to describe Bryce. Because Sabine didn't say anything. She just sneered.
That's fair.
So someone's interpreting it. And they might be right. But
what if we find out that, like, Sabine's actually, like, this huge advocate on equality, on race equality?
I mean, she's probably not. But they interpreted... Either Bryce or Danika interpreted Sabine's actions.
Yeah.
Right? Sabine just might have been like, I was hoping to see a hot guy, and that was it.
I wanted to sleep with my daughter's roommate. God. Why
Bryce is not my type. Ew.
Right? Oh. Which is ridiculous. Bryce is everyone's type.
Bryce is everyone's type. What this also tells me, though, is that Bryce loves Danika for accepting Bryce's human side, which maybe at this point in time in Bryce's life, she'd had a hard time doing, because that's the weaker side, and her fake father had just rejected her.
Maybe there is something to be said about, like, it was a big deal for Danika to accept her, because when I'm reading this, I'm just kind of like, well, no shit, Sherlock, like, equality, peace for all.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think I'm saying anything revolutionary here, but you don't see Danika with friends with anyone else, like any other half humans.
Right. And we don't know, do humans go to college?
Yeah.
We don't know.
That's a great question.
We don't know if Bryce was really, really anxious about whether or not her roommate would be nice to her or want to kill her or want to change rooms. Like, there's a lot that's unspoken there that I think we take for granted.
Yeah.
And so that moment, and it says... From that moment, Bryce and Danika are never apart. Mm-hmm. That was a core moment in Bryce's development, is the moment that Danika said hi, shook her hand, and accepted her.
I mean, and talk about, like, the two things that each person needed, where Danika, she's a natural alpha, and her instinct to protect has probably always been there. Mm-hmm. But she wasn't an adult, and she was probably under the thumb of her mother, right?
Right.
And Bryce, who always needed protection, never felt like she had it, not from a veneer before, but now the two of them, it's like both of them got to, like, live out their issues together.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God.
We're a perfect pair.
Let's match our issues together.
So at this point in the plot, Bryce begins hypothesizing that the power outage that occurred when Luna's horn was stolen was actually planned for that exact purpose, to steal the horn, which, spoiler, is on the nose, and Danika was the one to steal it. So, of course, what happens, Danika tries to throw Bryce off the scent under the guise of wanting to keep Bryce safe, which, for the record, is probably genuine, but still messed up. Danika has a secret. Bryce is starting to pick it up, and Danika's like, well, that's a bad idea. Don't even think about it.
She's a little twitchy tail.
Yeah, she does have a twitchy tail.
A little twitchy tail. I think maybe you should, like, not look on that. Focus on that.
She says to Bryce, quote, if they're able to do something like that, aka stealing the horn, I'd suggest staying away. Something I noticed during my reread, and I wonder if you noticed this. Whenever Luna's horn is brought up, Bryce will touch the golden pendant she wears, the Archesian amulet, which we will learn later in the novel is what is keeping the presence of the horn in Bryce's back hidden. Every time the horn gets mentioned, Bryce, something about that amulet is brought up. There's nothing for you to throw at me.
Damn it. That's such a good point. And there's so much electronics between the two of us. I will find a way to throw something at you later. That is such a good point and such a good catch.
And then immediately after that, Danika flat out tells Bryce, don't take that necklace off, especially if you're looking into shit like the horn.
Yeah.
Someone sound the alarm because that's a fucking breadcrumb. Like, really? Danika is flat out telling us what we need to know right now. And it's a good thing Bryce has never taken off the necklace since she got it from Jessica 3 years ago, which is a whole other nugget you should remember for the future.
Such a good... I mean, it's so funny, like, reading it now, knowing what we know. It's just, like, so glaring.
Yeah, it's so obvious, but we know nothing.
It's like the Sixth Sense. Once you've seen it, you're like, everything is so obvious.
Yeah, I can't unsee it now.
Yeah. But SJM isn't catering to the reread. She's writing for the initial read.
I actually think the opposite.
Okay, I agree because I regret saying what I said. But yes.
I think she's catering to the reread.
Agreed.
Because what's happening right now as we're rereading this book is we finally have the information Danika had. Mm-hmm. And so we now are able to see all the pieces and how they all line up.
Yeah.
At the first time we read this book, we are Bryce. We know nothing. Mm-hmm. But the second time we read it, we're Danika.
And
we
then
have the information.
The third time we read it, we are Jac and Amy. But it is true where I think my sentiment was mixed up. But yes, like that is what I do believe that SJM did that. And the way that she does it is that every single time you read it, you catch more. Mm-hmm. And talk about skill to do that. It is a big book and there is no wasted space. There is
a clue everywhere. Like every page. Yep. Sometimes multiple times on a single page. Sometimes multiple clues in a single paragraph. Like, it's overwhelming, actually.
Yeah.
As you are all about to be overwhelmed when we get to breadcrumbs. Like, it's mind-boggling.
It makes our breadcrumbs easy. And overwhelming, but it's definitely better than, like, back in ACOTAR where it's like, here are 3.
And this is all we got.
This is all you have.
Now that Danika is out of her wolf form and she's showered, she's wearing a white silk blouse with stained jeans. While the blouse is Bryce's blouse, and maybe Danika had no choice, that was the only other piece of clothing that was available, I want to go back to our discussion about the sword being placed in the supply closet. From the perspective of power, Danika's aura has changed. Gone is the band shirt and the leather jacket, which is edgy, which is...
I'm a cool girl.
Yeah, and feels powerful.
Yeah.
A leather jacket feels powerful.
I made fun of it, but like I too have a band shirt and leather jacket. That's one of my token outfits.
Instead now, Danika is wearing white, which is a symbol of purity, innocence, and silk, which is delicate. By changing her outfit, Danika changes the aura of power she might normally possess. And I think she's attempting to seem demure, as if she's innocent when we know she's not, especially when she's about to go see the heads of the city who could punish or execute her for what she has done. This is made obvious by her stained jeans. She's guilty of many deceits, like the jeans are stained. They're not guilty of deceit. And one of those deceits is stealing the horn.
Yeah, I think it's spot on. And I want to add to your point, the last we see of Danika, she's dirty and gross. And then when she comes back, she's in a wolf form, right? She's wearing Bryce's clothes underneath the fur. And to me, it's almost like a power play, that transition between dirty to I'm wearing your clothes. She had no point of coming out as a wolf.
Yeah, except to make herself feel powerful.
Unless Bryce would have been like, don't wear my shirt.
Right.
Now they're out on the street. I don't think Bryce would have said, don't wear my shirt. But it just feels like a power play because she's changing her aura and she's proving a point by starting out as a wolf and then changing into her humanoid form.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. I would never say no. Whenever people try to like borrow my shirts and stuff, I'm like, might be baggy on you. That is me low key being like, I got big boobs.
You do.
I do. But it is always like when someone borrows my shirt, it is like
It's not going to fit you the way it fits me.
Interesting that wasn't even brought up. So, like, what we're going to get into more of Bryce's, like, body confidence that I would love to emulate. As someone who is mid-sized girly herself, who has big boobs, whenever I lend friends clothes, it is always a, hey, this is going to be baggy on you. Not once is that mentioned with that shirt. Because why would Bryce mention it?
Yeah.
It's not an insecurity for her. God, she's so cool.
I actually feel the opposite.
You think it is an insecurity for her?
I do.
Because she doesn't mention it?
Wait till my chapter 3 notes.
Okay, let's keep going.
While Danika's been focused on making sure Bryce makes smart choices that don't get her into trouble, we learned that Bryce has been trained by her military stepfather, going back to something that you said about Bryce making things that are masculine feminized and weaponized by making them feminized.
Yeah.
Which I really liked. Quote, Bryce had hit up the gun range just a few days ago. She'd learned that for a human, a gun could mean the difference between life and slaughter. Not death, slaughter. We're going to get regular reminders that Bryce knows how to handle a gun, and it's important that we know this from the start, given how the last 25% of this book goes. SJM, always laying the groundwork, even when giving backstory that seems relevant for a small blip in the beginning. Look at that.
Yeah.
It's also a visual declaration that Bryce has the ability to be powerful, even if it's through the use of a physical weapon and not magical powers. Though a gun may be less powerful than magic, she is more capable than someone without a gun. This just comes back to the whole half-fae, half-human discussion. Bryce does have something, she just happens to not be full Vanir.
So go with the magical process that is my thought process.
Okay.
I'm jumping to the end of the book.
Okay.
We were talking about Bryce feminizing masculine weapons, and I think there's going to be a combination of like masculine weapons that she feminizes and then masculizing feminine weapons. Here's an example of that. How does she get rid of Micah? With a vacuum.
Oh, it's true.
We're seeing this in the beginning. We're going to see it at the end.
Yeah.
Where she uses, she womanizes, feminizes weapons. We'll have a better term for this by the end.
Yeah. Give us some time. We're working it out.
Yeah.
Something that struck me during this reread is that Bryce actively witnesses Danika lie to her mother, Ember. Now, I know I use actively redundantly, but let me stress how good of a liar Danika is and how Bryce doesn't blink an eye. Because right now, the lying benefits Bryce. And how quickly those tables will turn when Bryce realizes that that same lying has been used on her. She doesn't like it so much. Ember and Randall, Bryce's stepdad, are supposed to come visit Bryce for the weekend, which Bryce doesn't want because of the threat of Philip Briggs. Quote, hey, B must have forgotten to tell you that we're actually heading down to Calaxos this weekend. Ethan's got a Sunball game there, and we're all going to go cheer him on. Bryce even acknowledges that this is a half-truth.
Bryce also justifies / takes on the lie by saying she doesn't want her parents to come to the city when Briggs is free. And I had to reread the scene trying to see if Bryce was the one who told the lie initially, because it just almost like the justification in these words roll off the tongue so quickly for her, where it's like she takes on Danika's lie. It is now her lie as well, immediately.
Yeah.
Take what you want with that. Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk. We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. Tune in Thursday for part 2, where we finish covering this week's chapters.
We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode.
If you're enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon, Ko-Fi, or Venmo. Bye!
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.